Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome into the A-List podcast. I'm Kwani Lunis alongside Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn. I haven't seen y'all since
all year. I haven't seen you all year, Kwani. What's going on?
That joke will never get old. I don't care.
You really don't. You really don't. We know this.
You really don't care.
I'm the queen of corniness, and I'm okay with that. It's who I am.
I'm just glad to see you in the new year, Kwani. You too, Gary.
Have you been since last year? What you been up to?
Watching a lot of bad basketball, which we're going to get into in a minute. Other than that, just trying to maintain. Keeping my new suede Pumas nice and shiny, nice and clean.
Okay.
Would you
Gary?
get for Christmas?
I asked you a little pre-Christmas gift to me.
Oh.
For me to me.
You got to gift
you bought yourself a Christmas gift?
He did the Snoop Dogg. I want to thank me for believing in me.
Exactly. Exactly.
I got you.
I can't with y'all.
I still got a pair of them in the box, matter of fact.
Let's see him. We're a visual podcast. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, you're going to have to make sure you pull up the video on YouTube. Look at that. Fresh. Wow.
Fresh to death.
The coolest dad shoe in the world.
Fresh to death.
Get
it. The Celtics playing of late, however, has not been fresh.
Yeah, we can get into that. Let's do that. Let's start first with their terrible loss to OKC, the most lopsided loss of the season. First, I want to ask you this, because, of course, Celtics fans, understandably so, are dramatically upset about this loss. Do you two see it as that much of a big of a deal? Because the way people have been dramatic on the timeline, I think there might be a little bit of overreaction, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I'm not ready to just kind of, just nuke the whole squad and start from scratch and scorch the earth or anything like that. But there's some concern. I'm concerned, not the fact that they're losing, but the way that they're going about losing and the way that they are responding. They got their asses whipped bad by an Oklahoma City team that basically was just out there running. They weren't executing at this elite level. What Oklahoma City was doing was just simply outworking them in every way, shape, and form you can imagine. It was an effort game, and one team showed up, Oklahoma City, and one team didn't. And to hear the players respond afterwards, it didn't sound like they were seeing that there was a lack of a sense of urgency that they had in this game. And that they're thinking is that, well, we just got to shoot better. We just got to make our shots. And I'm looking at them like, nah, y'all, there's more problems going on than just shot making. For you to not respond to being down by 30 or something to a team that's 5, 6, 7 games below 500, and you're just like, well, we'll figure this out. Nah, bruh, nah. I mean, I'm looking for them to just have that moment where they're just like, we're not comfortable losing like this. It's one thing to lose. It's another thing to not compete. And they didn't.
I'll say this. I do think teams go through this. A couple weeks ago, Milwaukee went into Memphis and lost by 40.
That's a good team, Gary.
Yeah. Memphis is a good team. But there's no team that ever should lose by 40 points with Giannis Antetokounmpo on the floor. So everybody has their terrible games. I'm concerned personally because of the lack of kind of urgency to begin the game. Mm-hmm. What you're doing is you're letting these players, I just think you got, I'm going to go with Sherrod's bad boy Pistons. You got to start laying some dudes out. And I'm not talking about hurting dudes, but you can't let Bones Highland dribble for 24 seconds and then get to the rim unimpeded. You can't let him shimmy before, the Celtics are a big game, and they're showing them up. And that was bad enough. And I mentioned that to those guys and asked questions about Bruce Brown. Every time he hit a three, no, somebody need to come out here and need to guard me. That kind of, why am I open? I'm just that good. And then, they just didn't seem to trip off that. But then the Oklahoma game was worse. Jalen Williams was trying to embarrass them dudes. That dude, off a made free throw at the end of the third quarter, dribbled all the way down the floor without anyone stopping him and dunked. And the last line of defense was Peyton Pritchard, who backed up. Like, foul the hell out of him. Like, you're not doing that. No, boom. Crowd goes crazy. Like, what are we doing? Like, where's the pride? Where is the nah? Like, and it's like basketball is a game, just like you want to stop them from doing their job, yes. And these guys are great athletes, yes. And there's always another game the next day, yes. But you have to kind of realize when you're being embarrassed. You have to kind of realize when a team is trying to show your ass up. And the Thunder were showing them up and rubbing it in and making them look bad. And Marcus got upset and got ejected because he was just pissed. But you got to care about that. Like your mama watching that game, your peoples, like you've got to care that it's not like you lost by 7 and they just played exceptionally well. You were down by as many as 37 points. They were down by 20 at halftime. Isaiah Joe, second-round pick last year out of Arkansas, scored 17 in the second quarter. Then Josh Giddey scored 17 in the third. You had 2 different dudes go for 17 in a separate quarter. That's embarrassing. And you can't, Zula, well, our defense has been good. It just was tonight. No, it's not. No, it hasn't been good all year. Stop it with that. Like, we're ranked 5th in defense. No. Defensive rating in the eye test, we all watch the games. Do we see a stifling defense? Hell no. If you want to go by, okay, we held, this team and the numbers ended up working for good defensive rating. If you want to stick with the analytics on this, I'm sticking with the eye test. That's not a good defensive team. They don't have a rim protector. Teams are disrespecting them. Oklahoma City scored 70 damn points in the paint. 70. Like half their points down there in the paint. He hit 23s. Like, that's their scoring. Like, what's going on? So basically, that's 60 points on 3, 70 points in the paint. And they scored what? So they scored 20 points on mid-range shots and free throws. So they did 2 things: shooting it, killing you from the 3, or killing you at the rim. That's not a good defensive team. I'm sorry. Don't give me we held, the Clippers to 6, 4 points in last. I don't want to hear that. Like, I've watched basketball too damn long. That's not a good defense. And then Malcolm Brogdon admitted to me that we took our foot off the gas once we found out that St. Alexander was a plane. Like, who is the leader on this team? Who is like, hey, fellas, F that. We got to go out there and stomp these dudes. Let's give ourselves an easy night.
And that's
Let's
usually
take the life out of them early. Nope.
Yeah.
You sit there and let them get hot. And then dudes you didn't read about the scouting report, guys like Isaiah Joe, look like Allen Iverson.
Yeah.
I was thinking he was more like a cross between Isaiah Thomas and Joe Johnson. So they just said, we're just going to call you Isaiah Joe tonight.
That's real. That's really.
Because he gave them the business.
That's real hood of you, Sherrod. That's real hood.
I'm just saying.
I can't. That was ridiculous. Anyway, you dudes that you probably don't know about because the Thunder have a lot of those guys.
We do now.
Aaron Wiggins. Have you heard of him? He got off in your ass. Isaiah Joe. We know Josh Giddey.
Right.
Jalen Wynn's a rookie out of Santa Clara. Okay, do you know some of these guys? Have you read the scouting report? Were you prepared for the game? Did you come off that Denver game and say, you know what, we got our ass kicked against Denver? I'm mad. I'm going to get the net. Whoever's next is getting it. Nope. Y'all came in, hey, they ain't got their best player. We're going to go up here and smack. And then you don't make a defensive statement early. You try to get them by hitting threes. So what you do there is, if you're not hot and the other team starts hitting threes, they get comfortable. You got to make a defensive statement to begin the game. Physical, be physical. Pick up some damn fouls. Knock a dude into the third row when he's trying to do the whole dunk. Do something to send a message. But who is that person? Who's going to do that? Al? No. Marcus? Probably.
Yeah, he's done it before.
Jalen or Jason?
No.
Like, Jason's too concerned with getting his three ball off. Like, it's just like they're so focused on let's bombard them with threes that they just don't stop. They don't play defense. And then once their threes, the Denver game, they went 3 for 19 from three in the first half. So what did that do? Bruce Brown, Bones Highland, all got hot. And so Aaron Gordon got in their ass, Michael Porter Jr. So you let 4 of their dudes, not named Jokic, get hot. And then you wonder why you didn't win that game. And this time, they had dudes that got hot they didn't even know about. Don't tell me they knew about Isaiah Joe. They just didn't. They probably didn't.
I did, because I love the name. To me, the funny thing about Isaiah Joe, though, Gary, was that, one of the knocks on him.
Another Isaiah Joe note here.
Look, we're going to pay more attention to Isaiah Joe than they did. So let's just keep that 100 right now.
Right.
Isaiah Joe, one of the knocks on him was that he was nothing but a guy that could just knock down shots. He was getting to the cup at will. And that, for me, was those were the cookie crumbs left on the floor. Like, you know what? They have no clue about how to win this game tonight. Because if they're letting a guy who has been in the league as long as Isaiah Joe has been in, do the one thing he does not do well, which is get to the rim, they ain't trying to win this game.
Well,
they ain't trying to compete.
The play that I knew that something was wrong was, I forgot who it was, but someone from the Thunder took a corner three. And Jalen defended it. It was in the first half. It was second quarter. Jalen defended it. Al was under the basket against Luginitz Dort. Okay. Jalen backed off. Both of them looked at each other and watched Dort get the damn free throw like this, get the rebound literally like this. Like he did a crazy acrobatic move to get the rebound in front of 2 Celtics watching him, grabbed the ball, then went up and got fouled and hit 2 free throws. They thought they had a defensive stop. They didn't finish the play. They didn't work hard enough to get the rebound. They watched Dort, who's 6'5", and looked like he played in the NFL. Like, that dude is a real deal physical specimen cat. You don't want to go see him in a dark alley. He went up and got the rebound over Al and Jalen, and then got fouled. And you were just like, that's just playing harder.
Yeah.
Like, Al and Jalen thought, we got the stop. We forced, I can't remember, it might have been Giddey or Wiggins, one of those cats. Trey Mann, who, I don't know why, Trey Mann hit 7 threes against them last year. He had 5, like, y'all don't realize Trey Mann can shoot? He hit 5 against them tonight. Like, it's just ignorance of the scatter report. It's almost insulting. But that one play where Dort, between 2 Celtics, got the rebound and then got fouled and hit 2 free throws, I was like, these dudes ain't playing hard. They're just going to win. They're just trying to win this game on talent. They think these young dudes aren't as good as they are. Mm-hmm. And they're not. But when they hit shots and they're comfortable and they disrespect your defense and you got guys who just ain't showing up, like, we could talk about this. Like, Jason and Jalen, who's the third guy here? They have been, the rest of the guys have been freaking terrible. They have Derek White, Brogdon, Al had 2 points, what is it? 3 points and 2 rebounds in 20-something minutes last night. Like, Grant, like, they're not getting, Jason and Jalen are not getting scoring help.
No.
When they do, they're almost unbeatable. Mm-hmm. When they don't, they are in trouble. And then their defense slips, so other teams get comfortable. So now you got teams like the Thunder running you to the ground and clowning you. So I was personally concerned. I know to the game. You know who they play next? They play Luka. What do you think Luka do? What do you think Luka had 60 and 50 last week? What do you think he's gonna do? You think he's on the scouting report? I hope so. But you can't let Tim Hardaway get 5 threes and Dorian Finney-Smith and Christian, like, there's other guys on the Mavericks. So to me, it's like, what, like, where's the preparation here? And where's the message getting into, like, we need to get into do this team ass. Like, we need to make this an easy night. The Houston game, they messed around in the first half, and the Rockets made a bunch of young mistakes in the second half, and it looked like an easy win. The Clippers, they played hard. They made some plays. They won with, like the Clipper game was a solid performance, like the Milwaukee game was a solid performance. But Houston, Denver, Oklahoma City, 3 out of the last 4, not good performances. I'm not going to give them Houston. Houston's too young. Well, they thought Oklahoma City was Houston. Oklahoma City ain't Houston.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, we're going to play a quick game of pick and roll. What do you think the Celtics will need to get back on track? Better scoring or better defense? Because it clearly seems like a split divide.
Better defense. Oh, it's defense. They're going to score the ball. They scored 117 points last night. They lost by 33. The problem is defense. They scored 111 points against Denver. They lost by 12. Like, that's the defense is the problem. And Joe, we're rated 5th in defensive rating. Oh, okay. Like, come on. The eye test tells me your defense is a problem. Teams are disrespecting you. The Thunder was like, we're going to attack the rim and shoot the 3.
Yeah.
There was one play where pick and roll, Jalen and Grant, nobody guarded Giddey. He walked right to the rim, layup. They looked at each other. You were supposed to get him. No, you were supposed to get him. Like, it's just
communicate.
It's like that's the problem. And we're 40 games in at 26-12. We're 3 games from the midpoint of the season, the official midpoint, not the All-Star break. And y'all still having communication issues. Y'all still think y'all can win by shooting the lights out every night. What happens when the ball doesn't go in? But they're scoring nicely, 117, 111, but you're getting smacked. So it's the defense.
Yeah, we're both aligned on this one. The problem that I have with them is they're not embracing the reality that when you play good defense, you're playing good defense more likely than not because you're giving great effort. And when you play with great effort at one end of the floor, it tends to spill over on the opposite end of the floor. And conversely, when you play shoddy and take shortcuts at one end of the floor, and that's the way that you're playing, you're going to do the same thing at the other end of the floor. That's what we're seeing with their defense. Offensively, you're right, Gary. They can score with anyone and everyone in the NBA. They've been one of the top offensive teams in the league all season long, and they're going to finish the year as one of the top scoring teams in the NBA. But can they figure out that their defense has to lead the charge if they're going to charge their way back to the finals? If you look back at last season, it wasn't the fact that all of a sudden they were just destroying teams with this amazing shot making down the stretch. They started locking kids up. They started putting the clamps on teams the latter part of the season, and that spilled into the playoffs because they allowed their effort defensively to carry the day, and thus their offense became slightly better. They need to find a way to get back to being that kind of team because that's the kind of team that they're built to be. That's the kind of team that when you talk about being the best version of yourself as a team, it has to be their defense. What they've been able to do offensively has been a mirage. I've been bothered by their defense all season long because at some point, and we've seen this, Gary, time and time again, when teams allow their offense to be the narrative as to how they play, they always come up short. They always make a little bit of noise. They have lots of highlights. Think about all those great Houston teams that James Harden was playing on, just scoring at will. Think about all those, those teams that have this high octane. Phoenix Suns back when they had Steve Nash and they're putting up ridiculous, video game like numbers. They never won a chip. And the reason why, because when you get to the playoffs, it's about the grind. You don't get there if you don't know how to grind, and grinding begins at the defensive end of the floor. And then it can translate that effort that you put into grinding defensively. You put similar effort into what you do offensively. It's not going to be pretty, but it's winning basketball. And the Celtics, you're winning, but I don't believe they're playing winning basketball because they haven't allowed their defense to be front and center the way it needs to be for them to get back to the finals.
So when we talk about defense, the person that definitely comes to mind a lot of the times for the Celtics is Robert Williams. And He's DNP. He's probably still at a point where they're trying to manage his injury. So from what you've seen, what are the sample size that we've had to see of him this season on the floor? What have you gained from watching him? But also, what is your level of concern with Rob being able to fulfill this entire NBA season for the Celtics? Don't all speak at once now.
Rod, you're muted.
I know. A lot of the things that we like.
Boomers, man.
I know. If you knew, then why was you muted?
I wanted to make sure I didn't interrupt you in your soliloquy. Last
There
question.
You see, respect.
Trying to respect my elders. That's all.
Not your elders.
Trying to respect my elders. Anyway,
Your thoughts?
Robert Williams III.
Yeah, get to the question.
Does a lot of the things that we knew he could do even before the injury, and he's able to do this. But the problem that I'm having now is we're not seeing nearly as much of him on the floor when he is playing, and we're still dealing with this load management, injury management dynamic that makes me a little bit nervous because you're going to need Robert Williams to be very impactful come playoff time. And if you're already in the management business game right now, I'm not sure if you're necessarily doing that so that you can ratchet him up to being good enough to play longer stretches in the playoffs, or whether that injury is still fragile enough to where you're concerned that he's going to go out there and re-aggravate it. But the bottom line is this: they're going to need him to be as close to his best version when playoffs get here. And the way that they're bringing him along now, I'm not feeling confident that he's going to be there. Because again, I would have thought by now, it's been a week or so, a couple weeks. I would have thought he would have been closer to playing the minutes that he typically plays. But it looks like they're curing, even though they say there's no minutes restriction, he's playing less than 20 minutes a game. And I'm sorry, but you don't have enough players in your front line to where Robert Williams should be playing less than 20 minutes. That's just not being realistic with anyone who has seen him play or seen the guys that play behind him. So particularly when you look at Al Horford, who, and again, Al loved to death, good player, but Al looked old against OKC. It was one of the few games where he just looked like he just didn't have anything really available to give. And I would have probably not played him that game the way he was playing. He just didn't have it. It happens. But it's the bottom line with Robert Williams is you need him to be an impactful performer at both ends of the floor. I still don't think they use him enough from an offensive standpoint. I think he's more than anything else. He's just out there running up and down, hope he get an offensive rebound. I think they need to find ways to involve him more in the offense, not necessarily as a scorer, but just involve him touching the ball, doing something that forces defenses to at least acknowledge that he's on the floor. They need more from him, and they need to figure out ways to get him more opportunities. But 18, 20 minutes, that's not enough time for Robert Williams.
Yeah, I'm not, if they just wanted to, I think there's another thing too. I think they wanted to give him a break. They were like, well, we should beat the Thunder, so we're going to give him a break so we can get, we can get, him ready to go for Dallas. So I think that was another mistake. They maybe looked past the Thunder, giving Robert Williams a day off, knowing that they need him against the Mavericks. But I do think he needs to play maybe 23 to 25 minutes as opposed to 18 to 20. I agree with Sherrod. They could use him more on those lobs, give him a little opportunity to score at the rim. But I want to see more of a defensive impact from Robert. I want to see some rim protection, more rebounds. But I think he's done fine. I don't have any problems with what he's done. But I want to see a little bit more of it. And I do think that they're going to have to figure out what to do with the five. Like, Horford started to concern me a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like, there's games he just doesn't have it, right? He's just a non-factor. 3 for 10 against the Nuggets, 3 points against the Thunder. There's some games he does, but there's some games he doesn't. So who do you go to? Like, if Robert isn't playing, do you go to Luke Cornett? Do you use some Blake Griffin action? Like, what do you do at the five? You still got Vonleh. You got to make a decision on him actually in the next few days on what to do with Noah Vonleh. or do you bring in another kind of quality big who can fill some space? And I just think, and it's more, and I'm not a big DeMarcus Cousins great fan, but you do need kind of an enforcer on this team. You need somebody knocking somebody on the ass. Like, DeMarcus ain't letting that happen against the Thunder. He ain't letting Jalen Williams go coast to coast. Like, you got to send some messages. Al's just not that guy. He's just not. That's not his nature. You know, who on the team, like, you need a nasty dude on this team. You know, you need a mean MF on this team. And Rob really isn't that guy. Al, I said, like Sherrod said, Al started to concern me in terms of just kind of like the days where he doesn't quite have it. Al should do more than 2-3 rebounds in 20-plus minutes. If you're not going to score, Al, which is fine, you don't have to score times, hit the boards, play D, you know, but just don't be a non-factor out there. And the last couple of games, he just hasn't been a factor. So I think they need to do something at that 5 position and, you know, ramp up because teams are coming after you. Mm-hmm. We can talk about this. The Brooklyn Nets have won 13 straight. Like, the Nets are on your heels. They're a half game going into that game tonight against the Bulls. They could be tied. Like, the Nets seem to have found something. You know, Sherrod's favorite NBA player all time, Kyrie Irving, is, you know, cooperating. He's been a model citizen. They're playing together. Jock Vaughn, you know, one of the good guys that we all know around the league. One of the good guys has got those guys balling up, and they could be a factor. Milwaukee's coming after you. Philadelphia's coming after you. So Celtics needs to do something. Like, I just think the 5 is becoming a problem position. You know, unless you're going to spread the wealth. Let's say you're going to get Blake out there more, or you're going to give Vonleh another shot. They try to give Vonleh a shot. You know, you can't stay out of foul trouble. You know, or do you part ways with him and get one of these? Just said you get Dwight Howard from Taiwan, or you get like you might have to do something here because, like I said, like you can't depend on Robert for 30, 35 minutes. Al is not as consistent as he was. So what do you do?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Boogie Cousins because I think Sherrod had some thoughts on him.
Gary, I'm going to just tell you right now, okay? 3 words for you. Go get Boogie. Go get him. Listen, Gary, first of all, he's an upgrade over what you're getting out of Vonleh. That's not even in his diminished state. Boogie Cousins is better than Vonleh, first of all. Number 2, people forget that dude is only 32 years old. I mean, he's had some injuries, obviously, but he's still a relatively young player. And the role that you would need him in is, and in case of an emergency, we're going to play you 10, 15 minutes this night. He is more than capable of doing that. And the fact, and if we're being honest and keeping it 100, he's going to come into this situation in a very different, more humble state than he's ever been in, because he knows if the Celtics reached out to him, that's literally the only shot he's going to get back to get in the league.
And getting a ring, potentially.
Yeah, and have a shot at the ring. And he's not going to be expected to carry the franchise. He's not going to be buried at the end of the bench because, as we know, there is a clear need for them to get some additional help at that position. And the other thing that always comes into play when you add a veteran player, is he someone that his teammates will respect? Blake Griffin has seen Boogie Cousins up close and personal in his prime. You're going to get that from Blake. Tatum and Brown are old enough to where they remember when Boogie was balling out in Sacktown. You've got enough guys in your inner circle, your core group that are currently here who will recognize the talent that you're bringing in, understand that it's not quite what it used to be, but there's still something left in the tank. And if you're the Celtics, to me, it's a high reward, low risk proposition, because what you're getting out of Vonleh is nothing now. And so at least with Boogie Cousins, you bring in a guy that has the talent to elevate you to a level that you need to get to. And the other point, and this is the last one I will make on this particular situation, is that with Boogie Cousins, you're adding a player who understands that I ain't that dude no more. Every 29 teams have made that abundantly clear that I am not that dude anymore. So I've got a choice. I either join a crew that has a role for me that's not quite what I'm used to, but I can get adjusted to that. And remember, he did a pretty damn good job in a diminished role in his last couple of stops.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't hear about the drama and all that other knucklehead stuff that has followed him throughout his career. I think you will get the best version of Boogie Cousins at this point in his career possible. And if you're the Celtics, again, you add talent to the mix. You need to add more talent to the mix. You need to add somebody that when teams are putting a scouting report together, they're not just going to gloss over him. This is not Luke Cornett, okay? This is not Sam Hauser. This is not, Noah Vonleh. These aren't guys that, at the end of your bench. This is a guy that when his career is done, he is going to be on that potential Hall of Fame bubble. When you look at the number of All-Star appearances that I don't think he'll get in, but when you look at the number of times he's been an All-Star, it's at minimum something to talk about.
Gary, your
I know,
face?
Gary, you're anti.
Gary, your face?
I'm not anti-Boogie at all. I like Boogie.
Oh.
I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer.
I don't think he is, but when you look at the times he's been an All-Star, you look at some of the guys who get in, he checks off that box, is what I'm saying.
He's a productive player, professional, a guy who's got a mean streak to him, can score at the rim. This team needs and as we all know, Sherrod.
And that dog. We
all know from that prophet, Doc Rivers, every great team needs a crazy dude.
An instigator.
Oh, yes, we have talked about that.
Is Marcus your crazy dude?
Last game is probably, I think he's trying to get there.
But
working on it.
Needs a crazy dude. They need somebody who's a little bit off. And they need somebody with a mean streak. Like, to me, watching the game last night, the Oklahoma game, like, you just can't let some of that disrespect happen. You can't. You got to knock somebody in their ass. Jalen Williams can't go coast to coast and dunk. Like, that was and one mixtape stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's embarrassing. And you got to feel like, man, crap going into the plane and acting like, oh, no big deal, we just lost. Like, you can't be chilling in the locker. I'm not saying they were, but you can't take this. Like, Tatum's comments after the game were like, I ain't really tripping, man. Like, I don't get too hot. I get it, Jason, but you got to be a little bit upset. You got to be like, damn, this is my team
out there.
Jalen, that's your team out there. Jason, that's your team out there. You are the two leaders. The leaders ain't out. You are the two dogs of this team, the two head conchos on this team. The head of the snake. That's your team out there looking stupid, looking like a fool. Making all these people laugh at you. Like, making them, look at the Celtics. Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
They didn't play hard. And then Missoula freely admitted they didn't play hard.
Ugh.
Like, what's wrong with what?
That, as a coach, that's literally the only thing you can control in a game.
It's playing hard. If you play badly,
that's the only thing you have control over.
If that team beat the Celtics by 7, where they just played an exceptional game, one dude came out the blue, 5 dudes scored 20 points. That's happened 3 times in like the last 30-something years. 5 dudes scored over 20 points.
Yeah, it's giving you have no in-game adjustments. 2 dudes
scored 17 a quarter. Like,
yeah.
That's some unprecedented stuff. It was a franchise high when the Thunder have been in existence, I'm going to say since like 2008, for points and a quarter. They scored 46 points in the third quarter. 46.
And they had 2 40-point quarters.
Yes, the second and the third. They scored 86 total points on 67% shooting in the second and third quarter. You don't mean to tell me that's like just luck? Guys are just hitting shots. I remember in college.
Whoa.
Going back.
Man.
Hopefully some of my friends from the Daily Cal will see this. We had the Cal men's soccer team. They were projected to be like win the conference my last year. They're very senior laden team. Woo. They started out, I think they were 3-6-2, whatever. And every game they lost was an excuse. Every game. And so in our office, we had something we put on the board said soccer excuse of the day. Because every time they lost, it was, oh, you wouldn't believe what happened to us. And one of the excuses was we face all good goalies.
Oh, come on.
And
what?
And my whole thing is, that's the Celtics. Like, guys are just hitting shots. Guys just got hot.
Right.
Oh,
like, we're in the NBA.
Man.
These are the best of the best. These are the best
making the
players in the
goalie
world.
look good. The reason you're facing all good goalies is because your offense sucks. The reason that guys are getting hot is because your defense and your effort. It's not, guys just got hot tonight.
Right. And you should expect to be facing good goalies. Let's be real. Like, we're playing the best of the best. I understand that team records play a hand, but you should be expecting to play up to the level of the standards of the NBA every game.
Like, you face a team without their best scorer and you take it off.
And then you just take a night off.
Bruce Brown hits 1 and 1.3 3-pointers a game. He had 4 in the first. Like, you're letting guys. That happened against Orlando. Paolo Banchero hit 6 threes.
Yeah.
In that one game they lost where Tatum wasn't there. He had 24 threes. Like, you letting dudes get off. Like, these dudes practice too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, Sherrod, well, we've all seen Marcus Smart practice excessively on his 3-pointer. And that makes him one of the many players in our league that is good one night and not so good the next. There's just something that separates Curry and Thompson, the dudes who shoot, who are amazing. From it's not, and sometimes it ain't practice. It's just technique or something else. Because I didn't see Marcus for years work on that 3-pointer. Mm-hmm. It's not like Marcus don't practice. So that means that puts you in a position where there's going to be some nights that shit goes down, right? Like, and Banchero a month ago had 6. He practices. It shows he works. Now, it doesn't work all the time, but if you let guys get hot, if you face all good goalies, quote unquote, you just let dudes step into shots without no defense, they're going to get confident. It's a confident league. And so, to me, the Celtics are the Cal soccer team. Oh, it was guys got hot. Oh, our defense, no, it was effort. It's you, man. And that was what the last 2 games, it's them. The Indiana game, it was them. It's more and more not like, well, you faced an exceptional performance. I mean, we're just starting to see, like, when they lose, it's generally their fault. Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah. I wasn't, great story about Cal soccer team. Speaking of men's soccer, Syracuse, did you know who the national champion is this year in men's soccer? That'd be the Syracuse University Orange, but moving on. We got some bills to pay, don't we, Kwani?
Yes, so let's take a pause real quick because as we step into the new year, I know a lot of small businesses are trying to figure out what their goals are going to be for the year. And Indeed, I think, is a partner at least that will help you with your goals. No one has a business like yours with all its strengths and challenges. To succeed, you're going to need a hiring partner to adapt to your needs. You need Indeed. Indeed is a hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. They have this instant match tool that over 80% of employers say they get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match the job description the moment they sponsor a job. When you sponsor Indeed posts in the US, you're actually 3 times more likely to get a hire. And with Indeed, you can select for the skills that matter most to you, add from a selection of over 100 Indeed assessment tests to your job post, and hone in on candidates that have the right skills for your job faster. Again, it's the new year. A lot of companies are probably looking to revamp their teams. Even better, Indeed is in the only job site where you can only pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. So if all of this sounds intriguing to you, you can start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to update your job post on Indeed.com. All you'll need to do is use Indeed.com/A-list. That's the URL. Offer good for a limited time. You can claim, once again, a $75 credit now on Indeed.com/A-list. Indeed.com/A-list. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. You need Indeed. So we've talked about Robert Williams. We've talked about the Celtics overall. Gary, you mentioned this a little bit, and we want to go into a little more depth. Malcolm Brogdon, he came in as one of those veteran leaders that we thought that the Celtics needed. You mentioned your conversation with him. Let's get a little more into it, whatever you're willing to share about your conversation with Brogdon.
No, I just asked them whether they kind of took their foot off the gas or kind of took a collective deep breath when they found out. Because when we got to, like, the whole thing about Gilgeous-Alexander wasn't announced until the Oklahoma City coach came into the media session about an hour, 45 minutes before the game and just announced, oh, he's out. Yep. Okay. And, non-COVID illness, so obviously less than 2 hours before the game. So I'm sure that obviously circulated to the locker room, the Celtics, and he just said that he felt like they took a collective deep breath and thought, okay, we got this. And, now did they not read the scouting reports? Did they just, I'm sure they prepared like they usually do. I'm sure that they felt like they were ready. I don't think they came in and said, you know what, we're just not ready to play tonight. I'm sure that they said they thought that they were ready to go. But then, they face guys that quite honestly are not household NBA names. I mean, Aaron Wiggins, do we know a lot about him? No. And
no relation to Andrew.
Yeah. Aaron Wiggins, Trey Mann, kid from Florida.
Trey Mann, no relation to Terrence Mann.
Yeah.
There we go. Good one.
There's Jalen Williams, I said, rookie out of Santa Clara.
No relation to Robert Williams.
Yeah, no relation. We know Josh Giddey. And we know Lou Dort because he's been around a couple of years. Exactly. So you're facing a team of guys that are just that are young and hungry. And Malcolm told me something he was like, dude, those dudes are playing for contracts. They're playing for status. They want what you got.
Yeah.
Right. So they're going to play hard. And they know these dudes don't think we can win. They don't know us. They don't follow us. We're in the Western Conference. We got a losing record. They don't. The Thunder just lost by 15 points at home. 18 points at home the other night to Philadelphia. They got smacked. So I'm sure the Celtics is like, well, shoot, I was with Gilgeous-Alexander. So I'm sure the Celtics looked at that and thought, and I just thought that was a major concern. And, Brogdon said they should take it personal. Now, how many of those guys do take it personal? How many of those guys are really upset? Or how many of those guys are like, man, I'm going to go back to the room, play some video games and chill, and I'll be ready. We'll see what happens. Right. When you have this philosophy, and that's what I ask a lot of coaches about, like guys like Jamal Mosley in Orlando or, Steve Clifford, when you're coaching teams that are rebuilding, Houston, Steven Silas in Houston, you've got to get used to losing because you can't bang your, when you're a rebuilding team like that and you're a young dude in the league and you're making money and you got your dream, but you're losing a lot, you can't trip too hard off loss. Like you can't bang your head against the wall after every loss because one, you're going to lose a lot because you're rebuilding, and two, there's always the next game. Mm-hmm. So you become more numb to losing. You don't trip because, we got another one. We got 82. I think that's a decent mentality to have because you can't take everything to heart. But I think you do have to take losses, certain games personally. Mm-hmm. You lose to the Bucks by 5, and we could have won that game. We played well. They're a good club. You lose twice to Orlando, you should take that personally. You lose to Oklahoma City by this is a loss that should be taken a little bit more personally than we got
MJ
another
mentality. MJ took everything personally.
We good. We good. We got another one in a couple of days. You should take this one personally. This would be special. But some players are trained, well, it's another game. I'm not tripping. Like Jason seems to be kind of that, hey, we lost. That's all good. Now, I don't think that doesn't mean he doesn't care about the game and care about the team, but I think he's been conditioned to understand by people, hey, you can't take everything so personally. But I think certain games, you have to take personal. I think this was an alarm. Like this is like, as Jalen, I agree with Jalen saying, like this is an alarm. If you don't see if you don't think something's wrong after this, if you just think that they got hot, we faced all good goalies. Like if you just think that, you know, it would just happen to be a good night, then that's a problem. So I was applauded and appreciated what Brogdon was saying, that they need to take it personally. I'm just wondering if everybody in the locker room feels that way. And then if they don't, who gets that message across? Who is the guy? Is it Marcus? Who is the guy to be like, hey, fellas, listen, like, we're not getting this game on TNT. Our mama watching. Marcus is going to be back. Marcus back home near his hometown. Like, I ain't getting embarrassed on TNT. Luka ain't going for 48 on us. Like, that ain't happening. Like, I'm not getting humiliated and have them talk about us on First Take in the morning about how we're frauds. So we need to show up. Who is going to say it in the locker room? I don't know.
I feel like it's been a recurring question this entire podcast too. Like, who is that guy? And it sounds as though he doesn't exist yet, or he exists, but he's just not on the right roster.
Nah, they're not. Yeah, they're just not built to be that kind of team based upon the players they have. And you can still win at a high level, but at some point you need someone who is not only willing to do the dirty work, but is capable of doing the dirty work, who's willing to get their hands in the mud a little bit, get a little dirty, and just be kind of feisty, have a little more dog in them, have a little more outward dog in them. I think I think most of the players on the Celtics scene, they play hard and when they are locked and engaged, but other than Marcus Smart, I don't see there's a guy who has that dog in him that is there pretty much every time they step out on the floor. It makes it a little bit tricky figuring out, what you're going to get in from some nights when the effort isn't there as a group, to whether they're just going to find a way to fight through that and give themselves a chance to be successful. One more friend of ours who knows a thing or two about success is our good friends at Rocket Money. Are you wasting money on subscriptions? 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about. Maybe for you, it's an unused Amazon Prime account or Hulu account that never gets streamed. There's this great app that you can use that helps you track all your expenses. And because of it, you no longer will be wasting money on subscriptions you don't even use. You might have heard of it. It's called Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. Do you know how much your subscriptions really are costing you? Most Americans think that they're spending around $80 a month on subscriptions, when truth be told, the actual cost is closer to $200 and some dollars. I found this out the hard way when I signed up for Rocket Money, that my expenses were way more than I thought they were. And needless to say, a few things got snip cut out of the mix, and Rocket Money was a big part of allowing me to do that. The app shows you all your subscriptions in one place and then cancels for you whatever you don't still want. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you didn't know you were paying for, which was huge for me. You may even find out you've been double charged for a subscription. To cancel a subscription is super duper, super easy. All you have to do is press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. So get rid of useless subscriptions with Rocket Money now. Go to rocketmoney.com/A-list. Seriously, it can save you hundreds per year. That's rocketmoney.com/A-list. Cancel your unnecessary subscriptions right now at rocketmoney.com. Back to the Kwani Lunis production.
Thank you. So looking ahead, the big game that's coming up, every game is a big game, but then the most closest on the calendar, at least right now, is the one that they'll play against the Mavericks in Dallas. Boston won the first matchup 125-112. Tatum had 37. Luka had 42. Who do you think is going to be the player to watch besides those two, because they're the obvious ones?
I'm going to go with Jaylen Brown. Brown because Jaylen, here's the thing. There's certain games where I think Tatum is going to be as good as the other team's best player. But for them to win, they need Jaylen to be as good as Tatum and that other dude. There needs to be a big three. Tatum, Luka, Jaylen Brown. If those are the big three that are head and shoulders above everyone else, the Celtics have a good shot of winning. But again, this is a game where it's going to come back to how well can the Celtics defend. can they play defense at a level that gives them a chance to be successful? And they've got to make shots. I mean, I know we talk about how, defense has to be improved, but they also got to make shots that they get that are open. You look back at the month of December, there are only a couple of teams in the NBA that shot the ball worse from the field than the Boston Celtics. You're talking about, I believe it was the Charlotte Hornets, and the other one was like the Houston Rockets, a couple of really bad teams. So, yes, they have to make more shots, but it's their defense that's going to be key. Luka's going to get his, that. I mean, would anyone be shocked if Luka went off for 40 in the first half? I wouldn't. He's that good, and their defense is that sketchy right now. So the key for them is to find a way to just minimize his impact, get your best players playing their best, and get something more than just sweat on the damn floor, contributions from the rest of your damn players.
I'm going to say the key is Robert Williams and returning and setting a defensive tone. The one thing I think that I saw, everybody points to that Phoenix game as one of their best games this season, and probably was their best performance. But it was a defense that set the tone. They shut down Ayton, they shut down Booker, they shut down Bridges. They punched Phoenix first. Defensively, they were just, they were stifling on defense in that game. And then the offense took off and they led by as many as 45, right? To me, you need to make a statement defensively, and Robert needs to help with that. You got to shut them down early. And I'm not talking about Luka. Like, Luka, you're not going to hold him to 16 points. Okay, we all know that. He's averaging 30 to 35. But you can't let Tim Hardaway hit 7 threes. Christian Wood go for 30 and 15. Like, you can hold down the other guys. You can put emphasis and focus on making a defensive statement first, and Robert Williams will help protect that rim. That's what I think. I think Jason, national TV game, will step up. Jalen has been very good in terms of, helping out in the scoring. Who knows about the other guys, the Derek Whites and the Brogdons and the Horfords and the Hausers and the Grant Williams. At this point, we don't know. And that's a concerning thing, too. You don't know how those guys are going to play. We thought we did in terms of the first month. Hauser splashing threes, Brogdon almost 50% from threes, Derek White playing really well, Grant, basically telling us you should have signed me in the offseason. But now we have no idea how those guys are going to do. They're not making an impact. Marcus sometimes disappears, and he didn't disappear last night. Well, he sort of does disappear, got protected. But he disappears in games. So I think it's Robert Williams has got to take those guys, put on the team on his back defensively, protect that rim, make sure that they don't, because he didn't play in the first matchup when Christian Wood went nuts because they were, guarding him with Derek White and Marcus Smart. So Robert Williams, to me, is the key player. Come back, bring that energy, say, listen, fellas, I don't know what happened that last game. I didn't play, but damn it, we ain't giving up 150 tonight. Not on my watch. And I know Rob's a little young. We ain't that young. He can say that. So Robert Williams is my key to the game.
All right, before we wrap up, I'm going to be corny. What do you think? You can either do it this way. You can do it as the team as a whole or pick a specific Celtics player. What does their New Year's resolution need to be?
Go ahead, Sherrod.
She was right, Gary. She was going to be corny with this.
Clean up it all.
I'm going to say that. Does it have to be a player? Could it be a coach?
Yeah, it could be a coach. That's a good one, yeah.
Okay. Joe Mazzulla. I think he needs to get like a stethoscope or some type of medical so that he can get a better sense of how to take the pulse of his team. Because I think he's a good coach, but I don't think he has a pulse for his team just yet. So my New Year's resolution would be for him to find some way of getting a better pulse of his team.
That's good. Gary?
My New Year's resolution is for Brad Stevens to upgrade the roster.
Okay.
However, you have to. This is the year. Okay. Now, Brooklyn wins it. Milwaukee, you're going to kick yourselves. Celtics are going to be kicking themselves. If one of these teams comes out the blue and wins a championship that wasn't the Warriors, because at this point, there is no great team in the NBA. Right? The Celtics have the best record, and they've played poorly. They're 26-12. That's not a great record. That's not, 35-3 or nothing like that. So there is no great team in the NBA. So you want to be the best. So your goal before the trade deadline or the buyout market or 10-day is to bring in as many dudes on this roster as you need to supplement. And if you have a guy that isn't playing, well, you get to watch a team win a championship. One thing that they should have learned from Golden State last year is that Golden State had their roster loaded. Iguodala, Bijalika, Gary Payton II, guys, some of those guys did not play. But they didn't have a guy on there who was just wasting time.
Exactly.
And you got some guys on this roster now, Justin Jackson, maybe Noah Vonleh, who seem to be waste of time. And there's a guy at the G League, and man, I'm gonna butcher his name.
Former draft pick of the Spurs.
Who's playing for Maine, who I thought was very impressive. Gosh, I should have brought him up. Newark.
I'm sorry.
Something. Who is? I just looked and he hit 5 threes. I watched that game against Rio Grande Valley, and I was like, wow, he could probably help the Celtics. Like he just looked ready, and to me, you need to maybe still upgrade the roster. You brought Malcolm in. Can you depend on Sam Hauser? I'm not saying, do anything with Sam Hauser. I think he's definitely a useful piece, but I would upgrade. If I'm Brad Stevens, my resolution is to do what you need to do to upgrade this roster, to add another significant piece to make a real title run. Don't just rely on this team that you have now, because believe me, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, Philly, all of them are going to be searching for Miami. Miami's starting to play better now. Don't sleep on the Heat. They've got off to kind of a rough start. They're starting to play ball now. So all those teams are going to be hunting in the hunt for players. Exactly. Thank you. Mariel Shayok. Thank you, Sherrod.
It's funny. I was looking at the roster and I couldn't figure out what name you couldn't say. So yeah.
Mariel Shayok. Sorry.
Easy, right? Jersey, represent.
Jersey. He grew up with Kwani. So that's a guy I thought, and Canadian. So our Canadian fans, let's bring another one to the league. So he was a guy I was like, wow, he looked like he could help. I'm not talking about play like 30 minutes, but somebody who can contribute. So if I'm Brad Stevens, upgrade the roster, get the players you need to get, because this is the year. There is no great team. The Warriors are shaky. Every team's got a weakness. Make sure you don't have any more major weaknesses.
When in doubt, get a player from Jersey. Shout out St. Patrick's Prep, because my cousin did go there. Anyway, that's a wrap on our first podcast episode of 2023. Once again, we have to give some love to our sponsors, Indeed.com, Rocket Money. Make sure you use those promo codes if you decide to sign up. Also, quickly, I do want to send some love and prayers to DeMar Hamlin. I know it's a different sport, but it's definitely a reminder that we love these games. We love basketball. We love football, but it's always very humbling to remember that it is just a game. So even though the Celtics aren't doing well, make sure you're keeping in mind that these players are putting their lives on the line in different ways. And we just want to send some prayers to Hamlin.
Mr. Hamlin. And hopefully he can live a great, healthy rest of his life and have kids and be a granddad and granddad and whatever he wants to do in his life, chase his dreams.
Yes. But until next week, thank you all for listening. This is the A-List Podcast. Have a great week.